I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's News Update. Rockets continue to be fired into Israel Monday from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip after a weekend full of rocket attacks, which saw approximately 100 rockets fired into southern Israel by Hamas terrorists, leaving 3 people injured in the southern Israeli town of Sderot and many being treated for shock in the southern region. In the latest incidents on Monday evening, Israel time, the Iron Dome defense system intercepted 2 rockets fired at the town of Ofakim. A 3rd rocket exploded in an open area in the western Negev, and 2 rockets landed in the already hard-hit town of Netivot. No injuries or damage were reported. Israel's Channel 2 reported Monday evening after those attacks that the Gazan terrorist organizations firing the rockets into Israel had agreed to an Egyptian brokered ceasefire. However, shortly after that was reported, 2 additional rockets were reportedly fired into the town of Sderot. Israel's President Shimon Peres addressed the recent escalation of attacks from Hamas in an exclusive interview with CNN's Sarah Seidner.
What will Israel do if the rockets keep coming into Israel?
We shall try to stop it by all the means we can mobilize and use, and we can. But don't think that we are defenseless. We are restrained. We don't take initiatives. We are careful to respect human life, and we shall be careful. But if they want that the Gazian people, the Gazian mothers will sleep at night, they must understand that all mothers want to sleep at night with their babies.
The Jerusalem Post reports that United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon condemned the rocket fire on Monday and called for it to stop. His office released a statement saying both sides should do everything to avoid further escalation and must respect their obligations under international humanitarian law to ensure the protection of civilians at all times. Israel's Knesset announced that it will hold a special session on Thursday morning to discuss the escalation on Israel's southern border with Gaza as well as along its northern border with Syria. And the American Jewish Committee responded to the recent barrage of rocket fire as well. On Sunday, the AJC called on the international community to condemn the ongoing attacks. AJC Executive Director David Harris asked where the voices of outrage were after the recent escalation, saying Hamas has used Gaza as a staging ground against Israel. In response, the world remains largely silent. The Anti-Defamation League on Friday called on members of the United Nations to reject the draft resolution being circulated by the Palestinian Observer Mission to the UN to upgrade the Palestinian status. ADL National Director Abe Foxman said this document is part of an ill-conceived effort by the Palestinians to use the international community as a platform for unilaterally attaining statehood rather than negotiating peace directly with Israel. Foxman went on to say that the UN bid ignores Israel's willingness to resume peace talks at any time without precondition. Foxman said if the resolution was adopted, it would push away the already fragile prospects for peace. He asked that the UN General Assembly not adopt the resolution, but rather encourage the Palestinians to commit themselves to a bilateral negotiating process without preconditions, which aims to bring about a Palestinian state living side by side with Israel in peace and security. And finally, the United States Chamber of Commerce, together with the U.S.-Israel Business Initiative, is leading a senior national security trade delegation to Israel this week. The delegation's goal is to promote business opportunities in such areas as cybersecurity, infrastructure protection, emergency management, and border security. U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security Tom Ridge is one of the leaders of the American delegation. He said both politically and economically, Israel is one of our most significant allies globally and our most important ally in the Middle East. The U.S.-Israel Business Initiative was launched in October of 2010 in order to advance and strengthen commercial ties between and advocate for American companies operating in Israel. And that's Shalom TV's News Update. I'm Teisha Bader.